let's go ahead and open up the rectangle tool. Let's get some basics. You get a few more options here. We don't need to worry about this too much. We're just going to stick with the basic rectangle. You can see here that it comes up with a green box. As I'm drawing, everything comes out on that plane. When I'm on the green box though, I have a problem because it draws up in the air along every plane except for the green plane. So it'll draw along the red and it'll draw along the blue, but it won't draw on the green plane. Um, to remedy that, you have to go back in and draw it on the blue plane so that I'm working on the red and green. If that makes sense. So as I'm drawing my squares, you'll notice that each one changes based on the axis you're driving on. So again, green, if we go in, we can play around with it and get it till it's blue. And then if we were to swing around the other side from this angle, we would draw more in red. So we'll be on the green axis and the blue axis, but not the red. So, and you can see in here we're working on three-dimensional shapes now. Pressing Control Z, you can go back and undo just like you normally would. Control Y will redo everything, put it right back. So if you deleted too much, that's one way to do it, or undo, I guess it's called. Moving forward, we're going to start off with a rectangle on the ground. We're going to draw it on the blue plane. So again, matching everything but the blue, not vertical. And what we want to focus on is our numbers here in the bottom corner. This is the dimensions. So the dimensions here are 8 foot 4 inches or 9 inches now, and 7/8 of an inch. So 8 foot is the one little quotation mark, 9 and 7/8 inches. Inches is represented with a quotation mark. We have a comma in there and a space. That's going to represent the other dimension, which is 6 foot 9.5 inches. So 9 space 1/2 inches is how you write that out when you're typing it out. You'll see that in just a minute here. In this case, I'm just going to throw a box down, a rectangle. And while these numbers are still here in the bottom corner, I'm going to go ahead and type in my length along the red line and my length along the green. So it's red comma green from this view we're looking at now. In this case, I want it to be 6 foot. So I'm just going to put 6 single quote comma space. And then I want it to be 1.5 inches wide. So that's 1 space 1/2 quotation mark. Press enter, and you see that your shape is automatically changed. If the dimensions aren't up there as you draw it, then you need to redraw the box. I'm not really sure how to go in and re-edit the dimensions once it's been set. I think it has to do with the select tool, but ignoring that, it's easier just to redraw it most of the time, and then or undo it and redo it. Now we've got a two-dimensional box, two-dimensional rectangle along the red and green plane here that is 6 foot by 1.5 inches wide. Problem is we want to make it three-dimensional. So we're going to go ahead and take our push-pull tool now, and as we hover over the box, you'll see that it starts to glow with a little bit of a checker box or something in there. So that's going to tell us we are hovering over it and we're selected. As we grab it, I can click it once and let go, and you click and drag to bring it up or down in that dimension. So as I go up and down, I'm holding and clicking. If I want to select, now that I have a third dimension, I can grab this and make it wider or narrower, go backwards or forwards, however that works out, and smaller and shorter. Right now I'm just working on this height dimension though, and I want it to be, let me go back to flat again. I want it to be exactly 3.5 inches tall. So even if I set it at 1.1/8 inch, which is where it's at now, if I just start typing 3.5 inches, press enter, then it automatically adjusts it for me. Again, you can't do that until you're back to the square where you first started drawing it. So if you were to do it now and I was to add some more to it, I would just be going up and you can see that it's only climbing up. So this is an extra 3 inches. As the whole thing's not 3 inches, it's now 6.5 inches, even though it says distance is 3. So I've moved it an additional 3 inches, or in this case, I've subtracted it an inch and a half, which would make it 2 inches tall. Um, 0 would be the starting point from where we let go originally. So if I keep going up and I let go, and I go up some more and I let go, then each time I do that, that number's distance changes. In this case, we don't want to do that. If you mess up and you're not sure, there's some tools to double check your work. This tape measure will be a good one to start with, and you can take this tape measure, drag it along, and hold it. And here it tells me it's 3.5 inches. Here on the tape measure and on the bottom corner. As I move it along, I start getting this dimension here that has a wavy line or a tilde symbol. The key next to the 1, that means about. So it's approximately 5 foot 1 and 3/8 inches where I have this measuring point. You'll see that we don't really want to use about measurements on here. We want to try to be as accurate as possible. You might see some of that more when we start doing angles. So what we've done here is I've created a 3-dimensional rectangle that is now 1.5 inches wide. If I take this tool here, the dimensions tool, it's under the from point, I can click 2 points and pull it out just to get the view, and that's telling me that between these 2 lines is 1.5 inches. If I do the same on the side, from this point to this point, I can tell it's 3.5 inches. And if I was to go the whole length of the thing, of the box, I would go all the way down to this side, and I can pull it up, and now I have my dimensions for this object. What this represents to me is a 2x4. So again, we talked about in class, a 2x4 is actually a 1/2 inch shorter on these measurements. So this would be the 2 and this would be the 4. So if I was to go to the store and buy a piece of lumber that's a 2x4, I'm actually getting a 1.5 by 3.5. In this case, it's 6 foot long. So that would be our dimensional lumber that you would buy from the store. Over here, let's make it look a little bit more like lumber. On the right side, you get the materials box. At the bottom, we're able to go to this search, browse. At the very bottom of this list will be the wood, and we can make it look a little bit more like wood just by selecting it and painting our edges. Problem is if you do it this way, you often miss some parts. So like the whole back of this is unpainted, and it can cause some problems with graphics later on, just more annoying than anything, but something to do. What you can do instead is to go backwards in time, press your space bar, get your select tool out, select the whole thing, make sure you get every corner so all the lines are blue. In this case, you see I missed it, and this isn't blue lines, it's not gray, it's grayed out. That means I did not select that surface or that side. So I want to go back and make sure I grab the whole thing, and now I only appear to have grabbed half of that again. Sometimes it's a little finicky. There we go. Now I've got everything. And I can just select the wood color again that I wanted. I'm going to paste it right in there, and the whole thing is done all the way around now at this point.